Well, it's always a good morning when we get to speak with a champion of freedom and all the socialist commies in this town. He is their worst nightmare. He is Mike Gonzalez, Senior Fellow at the Heritage Foundation. I can't think of a better introduction for you, Mike. Thanks for joining us.
That was fantastic. Good morning to you, and good morning to your fantastic co-host, Julie.
Good morning.
All right, let's not get carried away. Mike, listen, I love that Kevin Roberts, in his wisdom at Heritage Foundation, has made you the tip of the spear here on making the case, not only for defunding NPR, PBS, and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, but how to do it. In fact, let's start about the mechanics first. Talk to me about this rescission order. You hardly ever hear about it. It is a legal device that the federal government has. You never hear about it because it involves an administration asking Congress to take money back. Basically, they're going back to Congress and they're saying, "Oh no, this money you allocated, we don't want it, we don't need it. Please take it back." Is that what's going on here?
Yeah. So there's two ways. Once Congress, appropriates money. One is impoundment, which the Supreme Court says, the president. That's when the president does it, and the Supreme Court has in the past said, well, maybe that's not great. And then there's rescission, and that is the president asks Congress itself to claw back the money. Since Congress appropriated it in the first place, the Congress can then say, well, we're going to unappropriate it in a way. That's called rescission. Once the president sends the letter to Congress requesting this rescission, which he hasn't done yet, both houses will have 45 days to do this. I hear that the White House is pretty confident that they have the votes in the Senate and the House to take away $1.1 billion in money that has been appropriated to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. That's about 2 years worth of funding.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Look, people have been begging for this, obviously mostly Republicans, right of center people have been begging for this to be done, but we have seen that often it gets there. It's like daylight savings time. It's like we get the majority, and then we see that there isn't the intestinal fortitude among some members to actually do this. Do you think Republicans will come together to actually do this? I mean, I feel like I came to Washington. I don't want to even say how many years ago. Let's just say it's been several decades ago, and people were begging for this to happen back then in the 1890s. So is this the time? Is this actually going to happen, Mike?
Julie, it is a measure of how biased NPR and PBS are that every Republican president since LBJ created the CPB in 1967, every Republican president has tried to defund them or at least reform them, but usually defund them. They have failed because for several reasons. I think this year it is different. After half a century of conservatives saying enough, you have lost. What justification do you have to ask half the country that is conservative, whose views you daily denigrate? What justification do you have? I think there are several reasons why this year it will happen.
Wow, good.
We're speaking with Mike Gonzalez, Heritage Foundation.
Well,
sorry.
Look, very, very clearly, Elon Musk and Donald Trump have set out to take apart the permanent bureaucracy. There is no fourth branch of government. I've looked at the Constitution several times. There's no fourth branch of government. So they're trying to take it down, and they have both said that NPR and PBS do not deserve a penny of taxpayer money. There was a whistleblower, Yuri Berliner, who revealed a year ago in an article all the rot inside of NPR, but lastly, the appointment of Catherine Marr as CEO and president of NPR. Chris Rufo says that she is not human. She must have been created by AI. Nobody could be that woke.
Yeah.
So that
in fact, you said, Mike, that they only have themselves to blame for this. It is interesting that the people who are trying to put a fig leaf on this or trying to sort of make the case for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, they're not doing, you're going to kill Big Bird, you're going to starve Elmo. That ain't working anymore. I don't know what case they have to make, especially after, as you point out, the CEO of NPR, Ms. Maher, lied under oath. She said that she didn't think NPR was biased, and even liberals recognize this.
We were both under oath. By the way, I was one of the witnesses at that hearing. The reason why no one knows this is because she drew all the attention. She self-immolated, Catherine Maher.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, they used to come and say it's for the children, right? The last refuge of the scoundrels. But I went through Paula Kerger. She was another witness, the CEO of PBS. She did not mention Sesame Street once in her testimony. You know why? Because she knows that they licensed off Sesame Street to HBO 10 years ago. Big Bird is making big bucks, okay? Mm-hmm. So it was only the Democrats who haven't gotten the memo, who wanted to get cutesy, who had pictures of Elmo and the Cookie Monster. But I tell you what word Paula Kerger used 65 times. She used the word local. So very briefly, they're trying to say that without NPR and PBS, there is no business model for local news coverage. All of us here who have been journalists or are journalists should be very worried that to think that only the taxpayer can have local. And the other one is weather emergencies. That is also that's ludicrous. Alaska has over 92% broadband penetration.
Right. Oh yeah, and please, it's an insult to anyone's intelligence. And by the way, one of the unspoken little scandals about NPR is they've been able to go in and get these radio stations that hadn't been designated as educational institutions, like the NPR station in town here is centered at American University, right? And those used to be radio stations where you would have a broadcast school at the college. People would learn how to be on radio. Students, it was designed for the students. NPR came up and gobbled up all of those frequencies. And now the college students don't have that. They're lucky if they can become an intern, but it's all run by these very well-paid and taxpayer-funded local radio journalists and broadcasters instead of what those frequencies were designed for, Mike Gonzalez, for the students.
Right. By the way, that local radio station, I don't know if it was that station or it was NPR in general. You speaking about the Maryland Man, right? This guy, Abrego Garcia. You know what sound they were using yesterday? They were using streaming from Casa de Maryland. Casa de Maryland. Of course. This far left outfit that
radical group. That's right. Yeah.
That's run by a South American communist. They were using sound from them. Are you serious?
Yeah, that's fair and balanced, man. That's fair and balanced. And by the way, the other thing about this, Mike, and you make the case as to why they should be defunded and why they will be defunded. Follow Mike Gonzalez and take a look at the great writing he's been doing on this issue. But finally, and frankly, most importantly, as you just said, LBJ created this back in the late 60s. We're living in a very different media landscape now than we were then. It's not like people lack access to news and information and entertainment and children's programming. For crying out loud, you can't escape electronic media in this day and age.
Yeah, only you and I will remember those days, Larry. Julie will not, but it was Walter Cronkite, John Chancellor, and David Brinkley. And Walter Cronkite used to end his broadcast by actually saying, and that's the way it was today, April 17th, 1974. That's the way it was because he told you that. So PBS grew the networks by a third, right? It was the fourth network. Today we have a cornucopia of channels, of streaming services, of educational content on YouTube and online that's free, accessible by everybody. We are living under the rules of LBJ in 2025.
And the left hates it. They hate all that freedom and all that information and all that opportunity. All right, Mike Gonzalez, we'll keep an eye on it. We're looking for this rescission memo from the administration to the Senate, and that's a bare majority. They don't need 60 threshold. All they need is a majority in the House and Senate, and the defunding will happen. Can't wait. Thank you, Mike. Great work, as always, at Heritage.
Ultimately, the CPB needs to be dissolved, though. They cannot stop the decision. Anyway.
We do need legislation, ultimately. Absolutely.